Hey everybody, and thank you for watching another video. My name is Merge, and when it comes to the Breaking Bad universe, there is no shortage of tragedies in the series. Whether it's the poisoning of a child, an aircraft collision, or even waking up to find out that your girlfriend's not breathing. And that's just a handful of the tragic moments that happen. But the one that sticks out to me has got to be the story of Gale, a genuine chemist and the most innocent of the cooks that we had throughout the series. And when things between Walter and Gus had got to their breaking point, a plan was put in motion to just get rid of Walter. But luckily, Heisenberg had a plan of his own, which was to make sure that he and Jesse would be the only chemists that Gus would have, and making them crucial to his operation. But the only way to do that would be to take Gale out the picture. And although Jesse was hesitant about taking a life, he ultimately went through with pulling the trigger. But how different would things have been if Jesse couldn't go through with the plan? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Heisenverse, a series where I make a change somewhere in the Breaking Bad timeline and explore how that one change ripples throughout the entire universe. And in this video, we explore the concept of Jesse not being able to shoot Gale and everything that happens from that decision. But before we get started, if you could leave a like on this video to support the channel, I'd appreciate it. Now, let's get into it. When Jesse arrives at Gale's apartment, he knocks on the door loud enough to get his attention, and Gale would turn off his music before answering the door. And to his surprise, he sees Jesse at his doorstep and would ask, "Hey, how may I help you?" Completely unaware of who Jesse is, because he only seen Jesse one other time, but this was hardly an introduction.
Hi, Gale. It's nice to meet you.
But in response to Gale, Jesse with no warning pulls out a gun and aims it at Gale's head. And the sight of the gun frightens Gale, causing him to take a small step back before offering Jesse to take whatever he wants. But when getting no response from Jesse, he then offers money, saying he has lots of money. But again, Jesse remains unfazed with the grip on his pistol tightening. And it's only until Gale begins to beg for his life that Jesse begins to feel the full weight of what he's about to do. And Gale says to him, You don't have to do this," as he's barely able to look Jesse in the eye. And something about the position that he's in brings him back to when he was face down in the dirt by Tuco with a gun pointed at his head while he was begging for his life. And the reason for Tuco is the same reason for this. Walter White, the man who forced Jesse into this life and has been pulling his strings ever since. In making that realization, Jesse would slowly lower the gun, and without a word, he would just walk away, deciding no longer to be Walter's puppet, and leaving Gale confused as he quickly shuts the door to breathe a sigh of relief. But while he's trying to calm down, he gets startled by his phone vibrating on the kitchen counter, and when he answers, it turns out to be Mike, and he tells Gale, "I need you to listen and listen good. Do not open that door for any reason until I tell you to. Got it?" And Gale says to Mike, "Yeah, about that." And he fills Mike in on the encounter that he just had with Jesse by saying, "At first, I thought I was a goner, but when I looked at him, he just looked like something clicked inside of him, and he just walked away." And Mike repeats him saying, "He just walked away?" And he says this right in front of Walter, who starts to have a look of panic on his face. Then Gale says, "Yeah, he's gone now, and my door is definitely locked, and I'm sorry for not answering sooner." And Mike tells him, "We'll deal with that later. For now, pack a bag. I have a guy coming to bring you to a safe house." And Gale says, "Yes sir, you got it," before Mike hangs up in his ear. And while still having a gun pointed at Walter, he tells him, "I told you, no more half measures. Goodbye, Walter." And as the former chemistry teacher pleads for his life, Mike, with no hesitation, shoots Walter White in the face and splattering his brains all over the washing machines behind him, basically mirroring the fate Gale would have had if Jesse went through with the plan. And after Mike takes care of Walter, he then receives a call from Victor letting him know that Gale is safe, and he also combed the area outside for Pinkman, but there's no sign of him. And with Gale's safety being the top priority, Mike says, "I'll take care of Pinkman. For now, just get Gale to the safe house, and on your way back, bring a shovel. We're gonna take a trip out to the desert." And Mike once again hangs up the phone before making one last call to Gus and telling him, "Walter White will no longer be a problem for us. However, Pinkman's still at large, but without Walter, he shouldn't be too hard to track down." And Gus exhales before telling Mike, "Good work. I trust disposal will not be an issue?" "Not at all. Me and Victor have a road trip to the desert planned when Gale gets to the safe house, and I'll give you an update when it's handled." And Gus ends the call this time and leaving Mike to wait on Victor's return. We pick up an hour later with Jesse sitting in his car and thinking about the choice he made not to kill Gale. But he shakes it off by snorting some meth off a CD just to cope with the idea that for the past 7 months of his partnership with Walter, he was nothing more than a pawn. And with his paranoia setting in, Jesse knows that he can't run forever, so he would call Saul from his burner phone and ask for help. And Saul would ask, "So I take it that Walter is, well, you know what? I don't know and I don't want to know. Let me just ask, do you have 125,000 and are you ready to leave right now?" And Jesse responds saying, "Yeah, I got the money. Just tell me where to go." And after Saul explains the disappearing service to Jesse, he agrees to the terms knowing that if he didn't kill Gale, there was nothing stopping them from killing Walter and leaving him as just another loose end. And at this point, the longer he sticks around, the more likely it is that he'll be caught. So before getting off the phone, Saul tells him where to go and what to look for, then wishing Jesse the best. And within 40 minutes, Jesse Pinkman would be packed up and ready to go with nothing more than the clothes on his back and a duffel bag of money, and choosing to leave behind the life he once had as the partner to Heisenverse in favor of a genuine fresh start. And maybe, one day, he'll wake up and realize that he hasn't thought about this for a long time, and only then will he know that he can truly forget. After a few days pass and still no word from Walter, his family begins to worry again. And Skylar would file another missing person report for Walter, but this time, they're not finding him naked in a supermarket. And no matter how hard they look or who they ask, Walter will never be found. And even though Skylar has an idea of what happened, being that she knew that he was a drug manufacturer, it's not something that she can just go to the police about, because for as much as she knows, she has no proof about any of it. And even when she questions Saul about his whereabouts, all he can do is tell her a blatant lie, saying, "Listen, Skylar, I'm sure Walter will turn up eventually." And Skylar would say, "Turn up alive, right?" And he pauses for a moment and says in a less confident tone, Of course, why wouldn't he?" But they both would know that that's never gonna happen. But as a gesture of good faith, with Saul still in charge of Walter's money, he would at least get the remainder of it laundered for the family, but only after taking his cut. And unfortunately, what would be left would just be enough to cover the remainder of Hank's medical bills that Skylar did volunteer for.
We can always pay their bills.
Skylar.
I think Marie should know the truth.
Skylar, I really don't think this is a good idea.
So, in the end, Walter's family would never see a penny of that drug money and basically making the career in the meth business a glorified health plan. And the person who suffers the most from his death or disappearance would definitely have to be Skylar, because for the rest of her life, she would have to remain silent of what the truth was while still pretending that there's a chance that Walter's still out there. And what makes it worse is that she has nobody that she can talk to about this that would still look at her the same. After a few months, Mike gives Gus an update about Jesse, saying, "I've searched high and low for Pinkman, and if he was still in town, he would have turned up by now. So either the kid got a new identity, or he's probably dead in one of these houses, but there hasn't been a whisper of him since that night with Gale." And Gus tells Mike, "Have you asked the lawyer?" Saul, he doesn't know anything. I've had his office bugged for months, and not a peep. If you want my opinion, I don't think he's coming back. The kid likely came to his senses about his partner and hung him out to dry. Gus would then take a deep exhale and changes the subject by asking Mike, "And how is he adjusting to the lab?" Gale, like a kid in a candy store. He's at 96.2 and he can make a hell of a cup of coffee. Mike says, giving Gus the good news. Gus then stands up and tells Mike, "Excellent. Our priority going forward will be the cartel." And Mike nods his head in acknowledgement before walking out the office and leaving Gus to plot his next move. A few weeks pass with Gale as the main cook, and as good as his output is, Gus will begin to notice that his trucks are being robbed on a consistent basis. And after sending Mike to investigate the issue, he finds a message written on a bucket that the cartel wants to have a meeting. And knowing that he can't put this off for too much longer without drawing attention to himself, Gus tells Mike to set up the meeting. And thinking that he can just pay them off and sever their partnership, Gus would offer $50 million to go their separate ways. But without even pretending to entertain that offer, they would counter by demanding that he gives up the recipe for the Blue Sky meth and half of the profits from his operation for keeping it a secret from the cartel. And if he were to refuse, they'll make sure that his trucks end up on the side of the road carrying nothing but bullets and dead bodies. So not wanting to put his operation at risk, he's given no choice but to prep Gale for the trip to Mexico. And the entire way there, Gus impresses upon Gale the importance of this going well. And with Mike there as backup, he ensures that everything is going to go smoothly just as long as Gale does what he's always been doing, which is being an extraordinary chemist. But what he wouldn't be aware of is what Gus has planned for Don Eladio and the cartel, which is to finally do what he's been waiting over 20 years for, revenge, and taking them out the picture for good. So once they get across the border, Gale is told to suit up and start cooking. And although he was nervous from being around so many guns and people, he did manage to create a batch that was nearly identical to what Jesse or Walter would produce. And after a brief celebration, they would be escorted poolside to wait on Don Eladio and the rest of the cartel. And while they wait, Mike would say to Gale, "You did good in the lab today. Now, whatever happens next, whatever is said to you by these people, it means nothing. Just nod your head and smile, and we'll be home soon." And Gale would ask, "What would they say to me?" But before Mike can answer, the cartel begins to pour out in the backyard, and as Gus talks to Don Eladio, he will present Gale to him as a gift in saying, "This is Gale Bedecker, the finest chemist across the border, and now he belongs to you and the cartel." And as Gale steps forward, as confused as he was by that statement, he remembers what Mike said, and he just smiles and shakes Don Eladio's hand. And the next gift that Gale will present to Don Eladio is a signature bottle of tequila named Zafiro Añejo. But little would they know, the bottle of tequila would be poisoned. And when Eladio tries to offer a shot to Gale, Gus would recommend him not to drink and saying that he's a recovering addict, and likely thinking of Jesse Pinkman at the time. But that one sentence did save Gale from everything that would happen next, because only after a few minutes, everyone sitting poolside would start to collapse and fall dead. And as Gale is unaware of what's going on, when he sees Mike begin to strangle Gaff right in front of him, he would immediately start to panic. Then he looks to his left and he would see Gale re-entering the backyard from a bathroom break he took, which he tried to use to vomit up all the poison. And now standing face to face with Don Eladio, he would stand tall as the cartel boss stumbles and falls into the pool water. But only after Gus has officially won against the cartel would he begin to feel the poison in his system, and he has to catch himself from falling by holding on to a nearby table. And Gale, who is understandably scared and in pure shock right now, he would say, "Mr. Fring? Mike? What's going on?" And after Mike finished choking out Gav, then grabbed the necklace from Don Eladio's body, he tells Gale, "Just stay close and help me with him." He says, referring to Gus, who's now struggling to stand. And as they begin to walk from the backyard to the front of the house, Gale is told to look for a car for them to get into. And after checking multiple vehicles, he's finally found a car with the keys inside of it. So as Mike goes to put Gus in the backseat of the car, when he opens up the front door, he'd be shot through the window by Joaquin Salamanca, and this leaves Gale wide open and unprotected. And as he's paralyzed with fear, it would just make Joaquin's job that much easier, as the next shot he fires would hit Gale directly between the eyes and killing him instantly. And as the last remaining Salamanca begin to walk towards the car, Mike, who's still holding onto the car door, is able to surprise him by shooting him twice in the chest. But with the shot that Mike took, he's losing a lot of blood fast, and he's unable to make the drive back to Gus's doctor. And as he looks at Gale's lifeless body, it really eats him up inside that he couldn't protect him. And as his vision gets blurry from the blood loss, he says to Gus with a shortness of breath, "I'm sorry I couldn't get us out of here, Frank." And that's all he's able to say before losing consciousness. And as Gus struggles to keep his eyes open, the poison is making its way through his body, and he knows that he doesn't have that much time left. But without Mike or Gale there to take him where he needs to be, there would be nothing he can do. And he doesn't even have the strength to get his phone out to make a call. And before he knows it, everything just goes dark. 36 hours later, we see a group of Border Patrol agents along with the Mexican police officers coming to investigate the scene. And when they see the amount of bodies in the area, they pick most of them out as the cartel members. But 3 bodies in particular catch their attention. And after they were identified, it just raises more questions as to why the owner of Los Pollos Hermanos, a chemist, and an ex-parking attendant was in the cartel territory. And when the news makes it back to the hometown of Albuquerque, all of Gus Fring's properties will be thoroughly checked to see what his connection was to the cartel. But with Gus being the man who's at least 5 steps ahead of the police, he would have already had a plan in motion just in case he met his end earlier than expected. And when he didn't check in with Victor or Tyrus to let them know that he was alive, they assumed the worst, and together they dismantled the lab and moved any remaining drugs to a different location. So when the laundry was raided, as well as the chicken farm and even his home, the police wouldn't find anything out of the ordinary. And although him dying in Don Eladio's front yard still brings up a lot of unanswered questions, there would be no evidence to support any claims other than he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And as we zoom out to see this broadcast showing on the TV, the person watching it would be none other than Hector Salamanca. And even when seeing that everyone he cared about is now dead, he does have a look of satisfaction knowing that his lifelong enemy didn't make it out alive either. And just for a moment, he's able to smile that he was the one to outlive everybody. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for watching another video, and I really hope you enjoyed another story from the Heisenverse. And with everything that happened in this timeline, I feel it's a fitting conclusion for everyone. Gale, Mike, and Gus didn't make it out because they didn't have that unexpected element that was Jesse Pinkman. As for Walter's family, they might be broke for a while, but maybe there's a chance that they can bounce back, and eventually they'll accept that Walter's gone. But for Jesse, I think it's safe to say that he has the best ending out of everyone, mainly because he is as far away from the danger as possible. And yeah, there may be some PTSD in his future, but I'm sure he'll get over it. But as far as things in Albuquerque go, Victor and Tyrus are still out there, and with Victor having a good idea of how to cook Walter's formula, I wouldn't be surprised if they start up an operation of their own. After all, they have everything they need already. But that's just me. But now I want to hear from you guys. What'd you think of this story? Did you like it? Is there anything that you change? And what's another story that you'd like for me to cover? Whatever it is, let me know down below in the comments and I'll do my best to respond. Until then, my name is Merge. Later.